Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a simple basic bookmark out of leather. By the end of this video, you should understand basic stamping techniques and leather staining techniques. So, our materials include leather, a hammer, basic leather stamps, leather stain, 2 socks, and some water. Now our first step is going to be choosing our leather thickness. Leather comes in all sorts of thicknesses and qualities. Now, if you choose a piece that's too thick, the book will not be able to close very well. So I've chosen a very thin piece of leather. Next, I'm going to teach you how to properly wet your leather. First, you're going to take your sock, put it in the water, make sure it's not too wet, and then just go gently over the surface of your leather just enough so that the color changes. Now, you don't want to apply moisture to both sides according to Linnell in 2018, because that results in your leather being too wet, and if your leather is too wet, then your stamping will not be as crisp and it just looks messy in the end. Now, you want to wait until your leather has started to change back into its original color, and that's how you can tell if it's at the right moisture content. So, what we're going to do is we're going to use a basic basket weaving stamp, and we're going to line it up with our edge. Now, before we start working on our final project, we're going to take a practice piece of leather, and we're going to wet it in the same way, just so we can get used to using the tool before actually using it on the final project. Now, leather stamping is simply using a stamp made out of metal like this, and hitting it with a hammer so it leaves a 3D impression on your piece of leather, according to Miles in 2019. So, for this particular stamp, you're going to line it up against the edge, and you're going to take your hammer. Now, your hammer, you want it to hit firmly in the middle so that you get an even amount of pressure. Otherwise, half your stamp will be in there really deep, and half of it will look really light. And you also want to make sure that it doesn't bounce back up. Otherwise, you'll have a double stamp, which is a mistake. So you're going to go nice and light. And for this stamp, I'm just going to try hitting it twice and see what it looks like. That's another benefit of using the practice piece. You can figure out how many times you have to hit your leather. Now for this one, you put the top of your stamp in the first one that you hit, so then you keep a nice straight basket weave pattern. And then you just kind of keep repeating it. After you've finished hammering your border, what you want to do is make sure that your leather is still wet enough to keep working. So once you add your water back to it, we can move on to the next stamping part. So I have decided to make this bookmark for my mom. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the alphabet stamps and we're just going to line them up right down the middle and try to keep them as close to center as we can. I like putting more than one on there so we can get the spacing down. So once you have your spacing figured out, we can take the other ones back off and get ready to do the letters. So you take the little letter tool, and put it on there. You line it up where you had it. Try to keep it straight. You want to make sure that your letters are facing the correct way and you don't end up with wow instead of mom. So same technique for the hammer as with the basket tool. And here we go. And there's our letter M, and I will do the other 2 letters real quick. Okay, once you've finished stamping out your letters, whether it be for your mom or for whoever you wanted it to be, if you want to put letters on it at all. Now, since my mom likes flowers, I'm going to put a flower stamp on it. I'm going to line it up with the letters and with using the same technique. Hit it twice and make sure that it's on there. Now you want to make sure that you can see your image and that it's crisp. If it's not, you can try replacing the stamp back on there. You want to avoid this though, because it's really easy to mess up and end up with a double image. Now, our last step is going to be staining the leather. So you're going to take your other sock after you open your leather, after you shake it, open your leather stain, put the sock in it, and you want to make sure you have enough on there, but if you have too much, it'll just make it so you have more work in the end. And in the same way that you apply the water, you want to make it nice, light, and even. And the more stain you put on there, or the more coats that you do, the darker the stain is going to be. So what you can do is try to keep one part of the sock dry, so then you can come back and go over it again. This kind of makes it have a more even coat and spread it into those stamping holes that you made. So throughout the basket weaves, you want to kind of go heavier there with the stain so that the stain gets down into the groups that you've made. So just go over it nice and easy. And you want to avoid getting stain on your hands. And some people are better at it than I am. I get a lot of leather stain on my hands. One good way, according to Matsko in 2019, is to use baking soda to get leather stain off your hands. This works for other stains as well, like hair dye and different things. I just don't dye my hair. You might. That's okay. I'm going to wipe off and give it a good clear coating. There you go. Have it. One leather bookmark. Now that you've finished your leather bookmark, you have a basic understanding of leather stamping and staining. And I hope that you continue to get more into leather because it's a lot of fun.